What's up guys, it's Deegan, and today I'm going to be reading you a creepypasta entitled The Creep. I just went to the creepypasta wiki and clicked on a random page, so I don't know what the story's about, but we'll see. Anyways, the link will be in the description to read along with me, so yeah, I'll give you time for that. I hope you guys enjoy. My name's Deegan, I love you, please rate, comment, subscribe, and click on that link right now. The Creep. A beautiful girl was once food shopping at her hometown grocery store when she met a man. He was very attractive and clean-cut. She watched him the whole time shopping, practically following him, and he noticed this, but nothing was said to Brittney. He stopped her before she could get to the checkout line and handed her a piece of paper. She instantly assumed it had his number in it. She smiled and turned around to her purse to write down her number on an old recipe from Target. She wrote her phone number down and handed it to him. He smiled and walked away. That night she made dinner, for one, made dessert, for one. She got ready for bed, washed her face, combed her hair, put on her night clothes, and slipped into her bed sheets. Brittney picked up her phone and stared at it, waiting for a call. Finally, the phone rang with a strange number, and she answered it with a high-pitched, classic flirting voice.
Hey.
Then a voice said,
Hey.
Back to her. She noticed her conversation. She continued her conversation, saying,
Is this the person I met in the grocery store?
The voice on the other end of the phone said the same thing.
Is this the person I met in the grocery store?
She assumed he was mocking her flirtatiously. She continued to speak, but was continued to be mocked by the man in the grocery store. She was beginning to be irritated, and she yelled.
Okay, that's enough, mister.
Brittney shuddered when she heard the voice say,
Okay, that's enough, mister.
She finally registered that she was talking to her own voice. She dropped the phone on her bed as soon as she figured it out. She ran to her purse and pulled out the piece of paper the man gave to her. It read, Don't answer the phone. She threw the note back in her purse and ran back to her phone. She redialed the number and the busy tone rang through the phone.
Shit.
She roughly whispered at the phone. She paced the room with her phone in her hand and her phone rang again. It was the same number. She answered it, this time in a panicky voice.
Hello?
But when she heard her own voice again, she hung up. The phone rang again with the same number and she answered, but screaming this time.
Hello?
Her voice rang back at her and she hung up. She attempted to call the number once again and the ringtone went on. She was relieved to hear this sound. But then something odd occurred. She could hear another phone ringing in the living room. She hesitatingly walked into the living room and listened for the mysterious sound. The phone immediately hung up as soon as she walked into the living room. She called back and heard the ringing sound again. It sounded close now. This time the phone answered, and she heard a very masculine voice saying,
Hello, Brittney.
Her eyes grew large at this, and she slowly took the phone from her ear and placed it on her chest, and slowly looked around. She quickly put the phone back to her ear and said, panicking,
Who is this? How do you know my name?
The strange voice said,
This is the man from the grocery store.
She shuddered.
I know everything about you, Brittney Black. I know that you had a sister and a brother and parents, but someone took them away from you overnight. I know who took your family away from you.
Her eyes filled with tears and she could only let out small whimpers.
How do you know, mister?
She softly cried out to him.
Do you know who you're talking to?
The man said.
The man from the grocery store?
She cried out.
No. I'm your worst nightmare, Miss Black.
At this she threw her phone to the couch and slipped onto her couch and cried. She quickly picked up her phone and dialed 911, but the phone played the busy tone, which is highly unusual. She once again threw her phone down and cried. She stared at her phone angrily and dialed the number again, and she listened to it ring, and heard the unfamiliar phone ringing. Brittney followed the sound this time, and she stood at the closet door, but the phone answered.
Don't open the door.
Then the phone hung up. She began crying more. She slowly inched her hand to the knob of the closet door.
Why am I doing this?
She thought to herself. She opened the door and nothing happened. The next morning, police arrived at Brittney's house and investigated the scene. They could not find her body anywhere until a detective looked into the living room closet and found Brittney lying on the floor, with her heart ripped out of her chest and a box placed next to her. Her eyes were gouged out, and her mouth was slit ear to ear, and her fingers cut off, and her stomach ripped open, and her insides ripped out. The detective flinched, but continued to investigate. She opened the box and found her insides in the box and her heart on top of the pile. A very weathered note was placed on the roof of the box.
Dear police, I'm so sorry you have to see this slut in the closet. Her family was the reason I had my life ripped out from me, like her heart. And she was the only one except for me. She called the C.P.S. on our parents, and my sister and I were sent to foster care. So I had to do what I felt was right and end her life. I had to kill my younger sister. Please forgive my sins, and you will find a surprise in the attic. Goodbye, Theodore Black.
The police made their way up the attic and found Theodore hung from the rafters of the attic. Another note was stapled to his chest.
I'm free.